are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We're back. It is The Issue, Thursday, August 3rd, and it has been a huge week here for us at The Issue Sports. If you haven't checked it out yet, Players Only Podcast has just dropped episode 1 that came out on Tuesday. So make sure you go watch that. Evan Morrison, Ben Roethlisberger's personal chef. So big week here on the show, and that doesn't change on this show either. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to football season. Football officially starts this month, right? We're into August. We got
only this
preseason.
month, this week. The Hall of Fame game is what, Sunday, I think?
Yeah. So we are rapidly approaching the NFL season, which feels great. Show is packed with NFL. We're going to start with a rant from Tim on Justin Fields and the NFL Top 100 list that was just released. Kind of shocking. A couple players below Justin Fields that have no business being below Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is way higher on that list, and I'd make the argument that he should not be on the list, but we'll get to that to start the show. We'll have hits and misses to round out the first segment, and in the second is home to the NFC South divisional predictions. So we're getting into the southern divisions now. So we have NFC South this week, AFC South, of course, next week, and then we will have the superlatives for the NFC South here to finish out the second segment. And in the third segment, we'll have the news and a little discussion on Trey Lance, right? The 49ers quarterback situation has been up in the air for the last, I guess, 2 years now?
More
3
than
years?
that, yeah.
So what do you do with Trey Lance? We'll get to that at the end of the show. But guys, thanks for stopping by today. We really appreciate it. No matter how you're watching or listening to the show, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course Amazon Music, iTunes. The list goes on and on. So just click that link in the description there if you need to find out what other platforms we are on. But overall, we appreciate you for being here.
Yes, I want to start with this. In any industry or any situation, really, people that are too close to the situation, they sometimes don't fully grasp like the basic facts of the situation. You see it in relationships all the time, both romantic and friendships, right? You can kind of overlook and miss out on some flaws because you're infatuated with that person. You like, some of the positives in your mind outweigh some of the cons, even if that's not 100% true. And this happens in sports all the time. I mean, people still convince themselves to sign Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, and even though we have a ton of data to show you that they don't really help winning in the NBA. This is exactly what we see this year with the NFL Top 100, right? We see players be overly nice and overly optimistic about a player just because they're quote-unquote tough to play against, right? That's one of the things. Oh, he's a nightmare to play against. A lot of people are tough to play against. Doesn't make them the best at all. Like the sweaty dude who takes his shirt off at the Y playing pickup, trust me, nobody wants to play against him. It doesn't mean he's the best one out there. He's up in your jersey. He's uncomfortable. Plays some decent defense. He's not even a top 6 player on the court in pickup. Right? Like, I'm sure John Ross out of Washington, the wide receiver that went to Cincinnati, 5-6 years ago? I'm sure he was tough to play against. Dude could flat out run. As a DB, you're looking at your game plan, you're saying, great, can't wait to run 40 flag routes today. You know what I mean? Like, trying to cover this guy. Nobody wanted to play against him. Didn't make him good. He was a bust. So Justin Fields is wildly dynamic. He's very comfortable running the football, and he can make some people miss. He's very fun to watch. Really, really fun player to watch. Think he has the chance to end up being great. He's been in the league 2 years now. He's heading into his third year. The main issue, though, is he is 5-20 as an NFL starting quarterback. His career completion percentage is sub 60. Let me say that again. Not sub 70 like, everybody else in the league. Sub 60. His career pass rating is sub 80. And he has almost just as many picks as he does touchdowns, 24-21. He was just ranked as the 86th best player in football. Some of the guys listed behind him, let's go with Devontae Smith, arguably the best number 2 receiver in football. Tristan Wirfs, who probably is the best right tackle in football. Trevor Lawrence, who is bigger, stronger, throws a better ball, wins more, is more productive, has been to the playoffs, has won a playoff game. Terry McLaurin, who, with Sam Howell and a bunch of nothing, has consistently been a top 15 receiver in football. That's just to name a few. I mean, Justin Fields isn't even... It shouldn't even be a debate. He's not even a top 150 player. I would argue he's not even a top 200 player, but I won't go there. It's not even up for debate that he's not one of the 150th best NFL players. Certainly not 100th. I mean, that's undeniably insane. Him being ranked there is going to land him somewhere in the 11th or 12th best quarterback in football. I mean, he's not even top 20. He doesn't even sniff the top 20. I would take Daniel Jones tomorrow. It's not even close. If you said next season, who would you want? It's not even close, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones won a playoff game. But Justin Fields can run the football. I don't care. You're telling a billion-dollar owner, hey, man, go home and then wake up every Monday morning a complete loser. 5 out of 25 times you're going to go home and you're going to be a loser. How's that feel? Like, you have to sell a losing product to your fan. We can sit here and say, well, what if this and what if that, and he's good at running the football, and he's fun to watch. It's year 3, you won 5 games. 5 games. Like, I don't want to hear, oh, the offensive line is bad. First off, go look at PFF. It was more middle of the road than it was bad. Secondly, these are the excuses you give to average or below average quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, hey, you have 5 minutes. Go get ready to start. Worst offensive line in football. Stud, sets records that year. Like, literally the most touchdown passes as a rookie in history with the worst offensive line in football. Dead last, 32nd in the league. How about Joe Burrow? Bad offensive line. Weapons are good, but they were still young. Jamar Chase was very young. Defense wasn't very good. Super Bowl appearance, and came within a play of winning it. Interesting. Oh, Justin Fields doesn't have any weapons. That's weird. Mahomes had 9 rookies play significant minutes, 5 of them on offense. Outside of Travis Kelce, has not one or even above average, not one elite or above average weapon. None. 0 outside of Travis Kelce. Oh, but Justin Fields, this, that, and that. That's exactly what you would say for a bad to below average quarterback. Like, you can hype him up on this list all day long. If he goes, don't kid yourself on this. If he goes 2-7 in the first, 9 weeks? If he goes 2-7 and he is 7-27 to start his NFL career, they're drafting a quarterback. They are making a decision in that building this year by Thanksgiving. If he's 2-7, they're moving off him. That's it. Where you can hype him up on this list all you want, it doesn't matter. In the NBA, right, like, you can get away with losing a Tuesday game. You play again Thursday. Like, it doesn't matter. There's another game in 2 days, maybe even the next day. In the NFL, all week you get clobbered by Chicago media. All week you get clobbered by national media. Right? Winning matters, period. If you can't win on Sunday, you will not be in this league. Right now, Justin Fields is a bust. It's not even an argument. I don't understand. Would you put Jamarcus Russell in the top 100 after year 2? Right? Justin Fields is a bust. Right now, he's a bottom 5 quarterback in football. It's not arguable. The players got it wrong here, and it is a disgrace for the NFL players to go ahead and put this out on a real list that gets published to the public. It's embarrassing. It's utterly embarrassing.
Yeah, it has to boil down to winning at some point, right? I mean, you can be talented, and there's no argument that Justin Fields isn't talented, right? We know that he has the raw skills there, but that doesn't make you a great quarterback, number one. Number two, that doesn't help your team win. You know, like, you can be the most talented, athletically gifted player on the field, and I think a lot of the times he probably is. But he doesn't complete his passes, he doesn't throw a whole lot of touchdowns, has a lot of turnovers, and, you know, to cap it off, like you said, has won 5 games in 2 seasons. So
he loses so frequently, it's ridiculous.
It's just, you can't be considered, in my mind, to make the top 100 list. You have to be at least a 500 player. You have to be on a team that wins, and that you have to help contribute to winning.
I get he's a young quarterback, and I know. You know, they throw out the excuses. There is some validity to those. I did kind of debunk them a little bit, but I'm not saying he had the best roster. I'm not asking him to be a playoff winning quarterback. But it's like, dude,
you got to win.
You have to win in some capacity.
At least be a 500 team.
Like, I'm not asking you to go to the Super Bowl like Joe Burrow did. Now, he's an outlier, obviously. Can you win game? I don't think I'm asking for a lot here for you to not lose 20 games out of the first 25.
It's really bad.
And I don't see him winning any more this year.
No, he keeps missing. And perfect transition, kind of. Get right into hits and misses here. Go over where we were right and wrong for this week.
So we've always preached, hit number 1, my bad. We've always preached Kirk Cousins. Good guy, good leader, good quarterback. A lot more productive than people want to give him credit for. His played really, really well against Aaron and the Packers, in his career, which is not easily said for like Lions, Vikings, and Bear quarterbacks.
It's tough to be in the division with that.
Right. Is he special? No. But I don't think anybody really appreciates the productivity and the winning of Kirk Cousins. And finally, he was ranked 42nd in the NFL Top 100. Now, I will also throw this out. I think that's overrated, but I think he's finally starting to get some flowers, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
Like, I think 42 is a little bit much, but at the end of the day, like, people are starting to finally realize that Kirk Cousins impacts winning a lot more than people think. And at the end of the day, just like the opposite of what we just talked about with Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins does almost nothing flashy, but wins games. Is a consistently good NFL quarterback that leads his team to victory more than not.
And I think the key there is what you just said, consistently good. The NFL is a very tough league to be consistent at anything in other than bad, right? It's easy to be bad in such a competitive league, but to consistently win and to be able to consistently carry your team and consistently beat Aaron Rodgers and find a way to, try to make some playoff appearances. I think he only has 2, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's been
he has way more than 2, but he only has one win.
One win.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, you can't take anything away from Kirk Cousins. He's been a solid quarterback for his entire career. Once he got to Minnesota, especially.
Right, and he was even decent in Washington. People want to bang on him for, he hasn't won a playoff game, this, or he doesn't win in the big spot all the time. Like, do we all realize how difficult it is to win in the playoffs, especially consistently, right? Like, everybody wants to crown Lamar. Give Lamar all the guaranteed money he wants. He's won, 2 playoff games? Like, you understand it's very, very difficult to win in the... Not everybody's Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. Like, that is an outlier. Like, Jared Goff's a very good quarterback. He's got that one good playoff run, that's it. Matt Stafford is a very good quarterback. Has that one playoff run, that's it. Like, it is not easy to do. Phillip Rivers, some people want to put him in the Hall of Fame, didn't ever win the big game. Like, never won the big game. So it's a lot tougher than you think.
Yeah.
Miss number 1 here. I thought Sean Payton would be a more soothing, comforting voice in Denver, and kind of bring the temperature down on the the pressure cooker that was the Denver Broncos organization.
Things are heating up out there even more.
He then kind of ran his mouth a little bit about former head coach Nathaniel Hackett, which I don't normally hate. When people talk trash in a sense, but I think it also depends on the situation, and I don't think this is the right situation to do so. I think bringing the temperature down, making the Broncos quiet again, like allowing them to fly under the radar, was, I think, the better proposition in terms of team success, and I don't think that's now possible. So he just set a lot of big expectations. I'm not sure they live up to them. I think they'll be a lot better, but he's almost setting it up to where if they're not better than the Jets, which who knows? Like, I both view them as like 8, 9, 10 win teams at the ceiling, right? Maybe 10.
Yeah.
I think we had them at 10-7. Is that right?
10-7.
9-8, 10-7, somewhere around there. So if they're not better than the Jets, which it's very possible that they're not, some shit's gonna fly.
Yeah, I agree. Just don't talk shit, especially if you haven't proved anything yet, right? Like, yeah,
I know
you're a great coach
in
New Orleans,
right?
But like, you're in a new organization now. Like, that stuff still matters and it holds some merit. But for the most part, like, you're in a new spot. Like, you have to prove yourself once again. You have to show that your scheme and your system works from system to system, and you can carry that to a different organization, right? This can't just be an anomaly now.
Well, like, look at Urban Meyer. Like, you don't think that debacle in Jacksonville is a knock on his legacy, right? Just because you have this legacy that you think is formed, right? Urban's a top 3 coach all time in college football history. Mm-hmm. Has that absolute debacle. Now he's not viewed the same.
Yeah.
Right? He'll have to wait another 6 months to get another TV job, because right now his name doesn't hold a lot of weight.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's, he'll get back to being a very good TV personality if he wants to try to coach college football again. I think he'd be successful.
Yeah.
But don't lie that affects your legacy, right? Like, if Sean Payton goes and bombs a lot like Nathaniel Hackett did, dude, like, you're not viewed the same.
Yeah, and the opposite of the Urban Meyer, like, if you want to flip the script and look, that's a Jim Harbaugh, right? Comes from college, comes right into the NFL, and coaches the 49ers to a great season.
Yeah,
and then
that
at that
helps
point,
your legacy,
yes,
right? Yeah.
And it's the things with Sean Payton. Just win first, right? You're not even fully sure that your quarterback can still play football. He just had the worst year of his career last year. Let's maybe worry about that and getting Russell Wilson back in form and back in shape before we start running our mouths about previous coaches that now coach with one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Aaron Rodgers.
I would agree. Hit number 2 here. Fair or not, I said, hey, NFL running backs, maybe quit biting the hand that's feeding you, right? You're making millions. This is the CBA you agreed upon. You negotiated for franchise tag. Then when you get franchise tagged, you're upset.
You get all pissed
I mean,
off.
this is the agreement you came to. Abide by it, period. That's how shit works. You have no leverage. You have no leverage at all. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is now finding that out the hard way. There's about 30 different ways you could screw a running back, and I think the Colts are going to do a couple of them and send a message. They already put him on, like, not the IR, but, like, they're basically, like, holding him out of practice, saying that he's hurt. Like, he doesn't have leverage. If I was the Colts, I wouldn't give him a contract. I'd probably cut him tomorrow, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't think he affects winning at all. What have they won since he's been there? Absolute nothing.
Because you can't build around a running back. You can't.
He was utterly terrible last year. I would not give him a contract whatsoever. And with Anthony Richardson, who's going to be a running quarterback, I don't think you need necessarily a dynamic back to go along with a dynamic running quarterback. So, yeah, I think the running backs are in a tough spot, and they're going to get screwed.
You need an Isaiah Pacheco. Somebody cheap that can come in, run the ball, do a damn good job. Not going to be top of the league, but not going to be bottom. Just going to run the ball, do your job, don't fumble. That's it.
Couldn't agree more. Mr. Number 2, I thought Trey Turner of the Phillies was a slam dunk. I mean, he can hit for power, for average. He runs well. You know, you got the speed, the cycles, power. He fielded his position pretty well. Well, this year he's slashing, like, I don't know, 230, minimal power, plethora of errors. I think he leads the league in errors at the shortstop position. So, so far it has not been a good signing. It's like 11 years, 300-something million. So now there's plenty of time to turn it around. But yeah, it hasn't been good for Trey Turner and the Phillies this year.
Shelled out a lot of money to really get a zero return on investment, maybe even a negative so far at this point. Like when you're hitting like that and making that amount of errors, that's a liability. That's not just like, oh, you're having a bad season. That's okay. You're going to cost us games now.
Yeah. No, I agree. Hit number 3 here. Mike Sando of The Athletic releases his quarterback tiers. Like once a year, it's polled by like executives, coaches, and I think anonymous players, maybe something like. I know it's executives and coaches for sure. Again, all anonymous. And what do you know? We agree with almost all of it, right? You have like your Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow in your tier 1.
Yep.
I think Rodgers might be in there too. And then you got your your Jalen Hurts, your Lamar Jacksons in tier 2. Yep. Bottom end of that is like a Kirk Cousins. I think the only thing I would disagree on is Jared Goff being tier 3. I think he's more low end tier 2. But either way, like, it lines up with pretty much exactly what we say here.
Yes.
Are we kind of good at this? I would say so.
I think so. And another thing, just kind of speaking on that whole quarterbacks tiers, I don't know if you saw it or not, Nick Wright was kind of going over it.
Yeah.
And making the argument for Joe Burrow over Josh Allen. For the
I
number
couldn't
2
agree
spot,
more. Couldn't agree more.
Right? And it just made me think a little bit, and we have time for the tangent.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to put Josh Allen above Joe Burrow, there's like really no weight to that statement. I mean, yeah, Josh has had one playoff run. One.
Outside of talent, I would agree with you.
And Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl and has made now 2 playoff runs. And I think is just overall consistently better when you look back year by year at their career. It was really interesting. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a great video.
I think it's certainly an interesting proposition. I think the only thing that you could say is, like, look how physically gifted Josh Allen is. And the one thing with Burrow, like if I had to pick to start a franchise, the only reason that I would even hesitate towards, maybe leaning Josh is he's a bigger, stronger athlete, hasn't gotten hurt up to this point. Joe has had the ACL injury, now the calf injury, and I don't think the calf's anything major, but you never know. Mm-hmm. You're close to the Achilles, so it's like,
You don't like messing around with that area.
Right, but I would still take Joe Burrow over Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying it's I don't think it's crazy one way or the other. Like I see both sides of the coin.
Well, the crazy thing is fans voted, and over I think 70% of NFL fans said that they would take Josh Allen over Joe Burrow,
I think that's a little
which
crazy.
I think is horrendous.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. Yeah, you saw it in that playoff game in the snow. Like, there's a difference. Miss number 3 here. You guys, you're missing out if you're not watching the Players Only podcast with Evan Morrison. You'd be miss number 3. You are missing out if you're not going to watch it. It was fantastic. Big Ben's personal chef. We were able to talk everything from some of Ben's routines to recipes, whatever. We tried food live on the show, so you would be missing out if you're not going to watch that. The links and everything will be in the description, YouTube, Spotify. Just like you can find this podcast, you can find that podcast as well.
Yeah.
So go watch it.
All the socials are all linked together, so if you go to theissuesports.com, find that, you'll be able to find everything from there. Yeah. All the links for players only, all the links for the issue. So, guys, we appreciate you staying up. We will be back in the second segment, and that will be the home to our NFC South predictions. 5th week of NFL divisional predictions. We are getting closer and closer to the season, and we are getting very excited about it. So, don't go anywhere. Not going to want to miss it.
All right, the issue is back here. Second segment on the 3rd of August. First August episode. It is now officially the first month that we have football. In fact, I think we have football this Sunday as the Hall of Fame game.
So good.
It feels very good to really know that it's right there, right? Obviously, you can tell. You see the date. Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah.
It feels real. It feels so real now. I'm very excited. Of course, we have the NFC South predictions today. We'll get to the superlatives thereafter, and then we'll have some sports news and some Trey Lance discussion. What do the Niners do at quarterback? They spent a lot of draft capital to get Trey Lance. They haven't really given him a fair shake. Had the starting job, breaks his leg, and then they strip it away from him. I know Brock Purdy's been good, but it's a discussion nonetheless. We'll get into that in the third segment. But just like we do at every same time in the episode, every week for the last, this is now the 5th week, and we have 3 more after this. 6, 7, yes, 3 more after this.
Yep.
Had to do some quick math. We have a divisional prediction. This week we have the NFC South. If you are new here, we always start at 4 and go to 1. So let's start in the basement with the Carolina Panthers. Look, there's so much that I'd love to be optimistic about with the Panthers, but my concern is the offensive line's not very good. It's okay. It's okay, not great. Miles Sanders is okay at back, but not great. And they don't have a ton of weapons to throw to. And I like Bryce Young's talent. I'm not sure how well it translates. I do think he is very, very small. Like Kyler Murray's small, but moves a lot better.
But he's so undersized.
I think Bryce Young does throw a good football. But also, we looked. Schedule's brutal. The first, 6 games, 7 games are just brutal for a rookie quarterback. Yeah. So I don't love their chances. 5, maybe 6 wins feels about right to me. That's about as high as I think they go.
And I think if he pops, if Bryce Young comes out and is fantastic, which I personally don't see happening, I think they might be able to play their way up to 7 wins. And that is possible. The absolute cap. But I don't see him doing really all that much, especially this year. Maybe not ever. I've just never been high on Bryce Young. I said when I saw him take his first couple snaps at rookie minicamp that it looked like a 7th grade quarterback in an NFL type situation where they're just like, hey man, you want to come in and run a couple plays with the team? And it just looked bad. I didn't like him when he was at Alabama, and I still do not like Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't
think it's a bold take, and I think as a show we are definitely a little bit lower on Bryce Young than others might be. There's people that are predicting Carolina to be closer to 8, 9, even 10 wins. I think
which
that's
is
just
ridiculous.
Yeah. I think I like their front 4 a lot, but I don't think it's going to be able to make up for some of the lacking areas on defense in terms of the back 7. Carolina at 5 and 12. Plus, we think Frank Reich's a good coach, but we have no evidence to show that he can win consistently.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Tampa Bay just a tick above at 6-11. If you told me they flipped, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be floored. I don't love Baker, but I do think their talent outside of Baker is almost a little bit underrated since Brady's left. They still have 2 very good receivers. They have a decent run game. Their offensive line play will still be top 12 in football. Defense lacks on the back end, but they still have really, really good edge rushers and a really nice linebacking duo with Devin White and Levante David, right? Yeah. So Tampa Bay's talent is being a little bit underrated, but I do think Baker's a very, very not good quarterback. So I think that's going to lead them to being 6-11. Plus, I don't know what I'm getting with Todd Bowles. He's never won anything at the professional level, so... Yeah. 6-11, maybe 7-10.
I mean, there are so many question marks around this team. I don't love Baker, but at the end of the day, you have to give him a little bit of credit. He plays the game very hard, and every now and then, he'll surprise you. So I see maybe a win or 2 out of that, but that's all. Outside of that, I think he's going to be propped up by the rest of the roster, like you said. Yeah. I think that team, if it had the right quarterback, would have a fighting
10,
chance
11 win teams.
to compete with the for the top of the division here. I don't see that, and I think if anything, if you're in Tampa and you're a Bucs fan, don't get discouraged by this season because you still do have talent. Yeah. I just don't like your quarterback whatsoever. If you can find a good quarterback, whether it's a veteran in the offseason or a better veteran in the offseason, or go ahead and draft somebody next season, that's fine. I think that's great, and they'll insert very well into the roster. But with Baker, I just don't see them doing much.
I just really don't like Todd Bowles either. Like, he just has shown no ability to win. None whatsoever, even with good rosters. Second place here, Atlanta at 9-8. You could talk me into 8-9 or 10-7. I think 9-8 feels about right to me. I think I really like Arthur Smith as a coach. I think the run game has been a lot better. The line play is improving. Defense, they have two decent corners, an okay pass rush. Now, linebacking core is a little bit weak. They don't tackle very well as a team, but they do get safety. What is that? Jesse Bates from Cincinnati. Yeah. So they do add a piece on the back end. So I think they'll be more serviceable on the defensive side. I think Bijan Robinson is an absolute home run. I didn't love the value of the pick, but I'm not going to sit here and deny his impact day one. He's going to be a very, very good back day one. I really like Kyle Pitts, Drake London. I don't love Desmond Ridder, but do I think he's going to be Daniel Jones level? I think he can be. Yeah, he's fairly mobile, and he throws a decent ball. Again, I don't think he's going to be top 15 quarterback. Can he be anywhere between 18 and 22? Probably. And if that's the case, I do think they can win at least 8 games. They probably luck their way into another win. 9-8 feels about right to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is just... The story with this team and the Bucs are completely, I want to say completely the same, but very similar in the fact where I just don't trust their quarterback at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Desmond Ridder, I think, can be okay, but I've never seen it, and, until I do, I'm not going to believe it.
Right, and so I think Atlanta has the potential to be a 5-6 win team, but I think they have the potential to be a 9 to 10 win team.
Yeah, and
so I think
hinges on that.
Right, and we both think Desmond Ridder is going to be average-ish. I think he's going to be average with good weapons that are going to prop him up a little bit.
And the problem is I've heard him compared to Justin Fields so many times that if that's what it ends up being, I don't think this team ever wins.
That's fair. All right, the number one team in the division, of course, the New Orleans Saints. First of all, they definitely have the best quarterback in the division in Derek Carr. I don't think that's much of a debate. He's been a veteran. He leads the league, or he's at least top 3 in the league in fourth quarter comebacks since he's been in the league. I don't love the coaching issue with Dennis Allen. Hasn't shown the ability. Again, a lot like Todd Bowles, defensive guy, doesn't win a ton at the NFL level, so that worries me a little bit. Feels like more of a coordinator than a head coach. But once Kamara comes back, we're not sure exactly how long the suspension is going to be. Michael Thomas is back. Chris Olave is a very, very good piece. They go out and get Jimmy Graham. So the offense is there. Defensively, Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, they have stars at almost every level of the defense. And again, I don't think it can be overlooked that Derek Carr is fairly easily the best quarterback in this division.
Yeah, and to be fair, he's coming into a lot easier of a division to play in, too.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't have a Mahomes anymore. He doesn't have a Justin Herbert. He doesn't have to hope that Russell Wilson's going to be bad again.
Yeah.
Right? He has a little more free reign here, and he can kind of dominate a little bit more than he could over in the AFC West. So I can see him being successful. I think, even though I don't love Dennis Allen as a head coach, I think at least he's in a spot now where there's less drama, consistent drama than there was in Vegas. I think the Raiders have been an absolute shit show for the last...
That's not even deniable.
15 seasons.
That's not even deniable. The only good year they had was when Derek Carr was an MVP candidate until he broke his leg.
Exactly. So I think he personally is in a better spot in New Orleans. Now it's just the fact, can we put it together? Can everything come together so that you can have a decently good season where you can win some games? Because I think
the talent's there.
If you can win 10 games, you win the division.
Oh, 100%.
I don't see anybody being in second place with 10 wins.
There's an argument that 9 wins could win the division. If you told me that the Saints were 9-8 and Atlanta was 8-9, I'd say that's completely valid.
We remember the division from last year when Tom won it with how many wins? It was 9?
I think they went 8-9.
Yeah. Or 9-8. They went 9-8.
Look it up.
You got it? Or I got it?
I got it.
All right. Either way, it's a division for the taking. All you got to do is be decent. And I think Derek Carr is that. I think he can at least be average.
They were 8-9. So, yeah, I think 9 wins could win the division. And I don't think it's crazy.
Which is sad to say.
To run back through, we have the Saints at the top at 10-7, Atlanta at 9-8 in second, Tampa Bay and Carolina fight for the third spot. Tampa Bay gets it at 6 wins. Carolina in the basement with 5. You could talk me into flipping those, but again, I think that's generally speaking the order. And I think it's interesting if you look at it. I do think this is going to reflect the quarterback play in the division. Like I think Derek Carr is going to be the best quarterback in the division. Mm-hmm. I think Desmond Ridder and Baker are going to be close at 2 and 3, and I think Bryce Young, the rookie, is going to be a little bit overwhelmed in the basement.
100% agree. And usually, if you pick them in the order of best quarterback to worst quarterback,
pretty good chance.
A lot of the time, it's going to hit. Either way, talking about best quarterback, let's hop right into the superlatives for the NFC South.
All right, for those who are new here, we always do MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player of the Year, and finally, Coach of the Year. This week, again, just like we did the predictions for the NFC South, we will obviously do the superlatives for the NFC South.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Start with MVP. Derek Carr, but I think this is tough because the term valuable, right? Who is going to impact winning more? Like, I think there's better players. Like, do I think Mike Evans is a better player? Yes. Do I think Chris Olave could be very dynamic at receiver? Absolutely. Do I think Drake London, Kyle Pitts, those are all very, very good options, but I don't think any of them impact winning as much as Derek Carr is going to.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Jameis is a very fine NFL quarterback. He just turns the ball over too much. So just that one switch alone is going to be worth a couple wins. That's the definition of value. I think his fourth quarter comeback ability that he has shown throughout his career is going to be wildly valuable as well. So I think Derek Carr is the most valuable player in the division in terms of producing wins and being productive for a team that needs it.
Yeah, I think for this category and what we've talked about in previous weeks, what I try to do before we name our MVP is imagine that team without him. Imagine him with an 8-week long injury. Just something that's going to take him out of the lineup. What does that team look like? How many games do they win?
2-6, 3-5, maybe.
Exactly. There's not another player on any of these other teams, of these other 3 teams, that I can honestly say if they were removed, it would be as catastrophic as if Derek Carr was not the quarterback for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, like, think of so that brings to Offensive Player of the Year Mike Evans. Like, if Mike Evans isn't on the Buccaneers, we view them as a 6-win team. I don't view them as like a 2-win team without Mike Evans. They're maybe even the same amount of wins, 6, maybe 5 at the worst. But either way, Offensive Player of the Year Mike Evans, because I do think he is dynamic. He's a vertical threat down the field, big, strong. It was like his 8th or 9th year in the league. He's at 1,000 yards every year. It's like him and Jerry Rice, the only 2 to do that. Like he is a special, consistent receiver. I don't view him in the number 1 class with like a Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson.
He's not there, no.
I think he's at probably the low end of like a tier 2 with like A.J. Brown, like that kind of tier, somewhere around 10 to 12 in the league. Just the definition of consistent. I do worry with Baker now being his quarterback, or Trask or Wolford. Probably Baker. That could be a problem, but I think he'll probably still get 1,100, 1,200 yards, 8 or 9 touchdowns, and it'll almost be the most impressive year of his career.
Yeah, but like we said before we started this, there's just really not all that much talent. I mean, Mike Evans is a fine receiver, and I think he's going to be the best of the division offensively. But it's not like he's like top of the league.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's not like a standout, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson type player. So.
Exactly.
All right, Defensive Player of the Year. We'll go back to the Saints here for Cam Jordan. First of all, I think he's the best pass rusher in the division. Probably the player with the most quote-unquote prestige in the division, right? Like, Cam Jordan's been around the league. He's been a veteran that's 12 to 15 sacks almost every year. Yep. He'll anchor that defense. Not only that, but I think off-the-field leadership has to matter at some point. I don't think it's everything, right? Especially Defensive Player of the Year, it's like, do you have talent? Are you producing, right? MVP is more like where leadership and stuff comes in. But I do think it's something with Cam Jordan. He's been like Walter Player, Man of the Year nominee for like so many years now. Good all-around guy, good leader, good pass rusher. And I do think without a great secondary, right? Marshawn Lattimore's good, not great. Without a really good number 2 as well, like they need a pass rush. Mm-hmm. And so I think, again, the value he brings at the Defensive Player of the Year spot, Cam Jordan, edge rusher for the Saints.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we've seen that position take off with importance, especially of late. We've seen teams that don't have a great secondary, teams that really struggle for pass protection. When you have a guy that can go get the quarterback and put a lot of pressure on that offensive line, on that quarterback, that really wears on a team over the length of a game.
Yeah.
I mean, if your quarterback's getting hit, it's not pretty.
Not to mention, like, this division doesn't have great quarterbacks, so if you can get to a bad quarterback, all quarterbacks under pressure are not as good. But especially like average to below average quarterbacks, if you can put pressure on them, especially with two young guys like a Ritter and like a Bryce Young, if you can get pressure on those are almost guaranteed wins. If you can make the rookie or the young guy uncomfortable, or Baker for that sense. Baker does not move as well as he thinks he does. So. And
I was going to say, like, yes, the young guy, but also the over-cocky veteran that thinks he's 100% better than everybody else that just simply is not. You hit him a couple times and get him all in his head. We know how that turns out. We've seen it plenty.
Big Ben's last game at Heinz Field.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, Heinz Field. Still going to call it Heinz Field. Sorry, not sorry. All right, Breakout Player of the Year. Now, this is a rookie, so I guess I don't know if that technically is Breakout Player, but he's gonna burst onto the scene.
We've had a rookie or two so far.
We? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Bijan Robinson, running back for the Atlanta Falcons. Look, again, I don't think he was great value at the pick at 6. I think they had other needs. But there was no denying that he was going to be wildly productive, right? He was going to be the focal point of the offense. He's going to be a Christian McCaffrey type where he could go for 100 and 100, right? 1,000 and 1,000, right?
Yeah.
1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards. Like, he could be that good. Again, focal point of the offense with a younger quarterback like a Desmond Ritter. He's going to be critical in the offense, both on the ground and through the air. So, yeah, Bijan Robinson probably will be the best back in the division, and that's the division with Alvin Kamara. So.
Yeah, he's just the Swiss Army knife. I mean, and like you said, especially with the young quarterback, having the safe check down that's really good, a really good receiving back is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
He does remind me actually a lot of Alvin Kamara, kind of like a Dalvin Cook, Kamara, almost like a bigger Austin Eckler in a sense, right? Like dual threat, good route runner, but still physical enough to run between the tackles like I do think like a Dalvin Cook is. So.
Yeah.
All right, Coach of the Year, Arthur Smith. Yeah, I think what they're going to be able to do, I think he's going to get Desmond Ritter to 8 or 9 wins. So if he can get him above 500, I think that is a coaching feat. I love what he does with the run game. He's very, very clever. Defense is not great, but improving. Again, he's an offensive coach. So I don't put a ton of that on him. So if he can do what we think he'll be able to do with Desmond Ritter in that offensive, weapons room, which is very young, if he can take all that youth and make them a fringe playoff team, I think that's a great coaching job, Arthur Smith. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. And especially in, I guess, this division, it's not going to be that hard to impress. I don't know. I just don't see it being that difficult for... I mean, these teams will make it difficult because they're not that great.
Well, Frank Reich, to me, first of all, I don't think they're going to be a very good team, so it's very hard for me to give him Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
And we have seen no history of him being able to win consistently. He had a couple good years in Indy, but nothing sustainable. And then same thing, Todd Bowles and Dennis Allen, both defensive guys, and have pretty stark losing records. So, Arthur Smith.
Process of elimination, if you will.
Honestly, yeah. I do think it'll be impressive though if he can get them to a fringe playoff team with the youth that's in that room and then Desmond Ritter. So.
I agree. Yeah. Run it back through.
All right, MVP Derek Carr, Offensive Player of the Year Mike Evans, Defensive Player of the Year Cam Jordan, Breakout Player of the Year Bijan Robinson, the rookie in Atlanta, and then Coach of the Year Arthur Smith for the NFC South.
Sounds good. Guys, you're going to want to stick around. In the third segment, we will have the news, and then we're going to get into a discussion on Trey Lance and the entire 49ers quarterback situation, just kind of what to expect there, and what do you do with Trey. So, guys, stick around. We'll be right back. Here we go, segment 3 of The Issue, August 3rd, episode 197. We got a pretty good one here. The news to start things out, and then a little discussion on Trey Lance and the 49ers. What do you do?
I wish there was a good answer. We'll talk about some of the options they have and some of the interesting facts of the situation, but it's I don't want to say it's not ideal.
I mean, yeah, we know it's not ideal. That's just bad.
It could be worse.
Could be.
At least they have some competent guys in the room.
You could have a non-Brock Purdy.
Could have, who's probably the worst quarterback situation in football? Well, you could be paying a ton of money to Daniel Jones. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, or a ton of money to Dak and not winning anything.
That's fair.
Or you could have Justin Fields. You were a little worried about that.
Well, depends what system. If I'm in the... Okay, we'll get to this. Later.
Either way, guys, go check out theissuesports.com. Got a lot of good stuff over there. You can find both podcasts right there. on the website. Everything that you need to find for players only, everything that you need to find for the issue, and then you can also subscribe to the newsletter while you're there. Check everything out. All the social medias are linked there. All the different platforms that all the shows are available on are linked there. Literally everything you need. And then we'll have some news with the merch. We have a new line that's about to drop, and we're going to do a little NFL kickoff giveaway, and that's still in the works, so keep your eye out for that in the next week. All the information on that will be able to be found in the newsletter as well. So if you're subscribed there, you know everything. But let's get to some stories in sports. I feel like this is always a pretty good one. Our news segments have been on recently. And now that we're heating up with football, there's going to be a lot more stories to cover. So let's go, the news.
Yeah, actually, this is probably the last week where there's going to be a lot of other sports. Football is going to eventually dominate the news, just because football dominates ratings, views, everything.
Yeah.
But for right now, it is the baseball trade deadline ended on, what would that be, Tuesday? So we saw a ton of movement. Two of the biggest moves, both outgoing from the New York Mets. Max Scherzer to the Rangers. The Rangers ended up paying only 20-something million of the salary, and the another 30-ish something will be paid by the Mets.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, good. And then the Astros get Justin Verlander. So it's weird because they're both in the same division, the Rangers and the Astros. They both have the same record, and they're fighting for the number one spot.
Yeah.
So it's interesting for two former teammates to now get split and now have to compete against each other. I like the move for both teams who are now competing, and I don't want to say all in, but kind of moving their chips towards the middle of the table to say, hey, this is our year. This year and next year, we're going for it. If I had to say which move I like better, I like the Astros getting Justin Verlander. He had some of his best seasons in Houston, and he has been pitching better this season than Max Scherzer has. So I will take Verlander and the Astros over Scherzer and the Rangers, but nonetheless, what do you think of the moves?
I like them. I like that we're about to see a battle. You can see it coming down the line. The end of the season is going to be awesome. I feel like this time to the end of the baseball season is always the best. And I think that speaks to what we've always said about the shorter seasons. It's just more interesting now, right? Because there's not all those games. Now you can't lose this many games. You have to win. There's must-win series, and you should sweep this one. You can afford to lose a game here. That's so much more exciting, and I like to see that both of these teams are acquiring all the talent and just saying, screw it, here we go. Let's fight it out.
Yeah, I would agree.
I do agree with you on the Verlander thing. I like him to Houston. I think there's something to be said for the familiarity of a place.
System, yeah.
And I think being able to go back to a place where you found so much success is always, it's never going to be a bad thing. I'm not saying that's going to be the dictating factor and the thing that's really going to, what we're going to see come from this trade. But I do like that move a little bit better.
I will say that the what-if potential of the Rangers had injuries not basically screwed them this year. First of all, Jacob deGrom could be your number one. Scherzer could be your number two. That's elite. Mm-hmm. And then Nathan Eovaldi's your three.
Yeah.
Nasty Nate's insane. He's a one on a lot of teams, a two on almost every team, a three on none, except for the Rangers, if that would be their rotation. Right now, he's a one or a two. With Scherzer now. And then Corey Seager's been on and off the IL all season. So if without injuries, that might have been the best team in baseball. We'll see if they can still get there without DeGrom and with a spotty Corey Seager health-wise. But the what-if potential just fascinates me.
Yeah.
It could have been just unbelievable.
It could look totally different right now.
Yeah. All right, story number 2 here. Unfortunately, Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick is out another full season. Last year he tore his ACL, and this year he tears his Achilles in practice. Hasn't even been able to get to the preseason in each of the last 2 seasons. Non-contact, tendon and ligament issues for Tim Patrick. Now, some of this is very, very bad luck. There is a component of training and tendon and joint health. But nonetheless, still a ton of bad luck for Tim Patrick. And not good luck for Russell Wilson and the Broncos. I like Judy, I like Courtland Sutton, but Tim Patrick is a very good number 3 receiver. KJ Hamler will have to fill in. I still think they'll be fine. Tim Patrick's not number 1 guy that you can't live without.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, unfortunate for him and unfortunate for the team.
It just sucks. I mean, anybody that's ever played a sport I think would understand the frustration and kind of like the letdown of training during the off season, being excited for the season, having I mean, let's be real, he hasn't played with Russ yet. You have a veteran quarterback coming in that is just has the potential to be fantastic, and now you get a new system with a Hall of Fame coach in Sean Payton, and all those pieces are there, and you're getting pumped for the season, and then just again for the second year in a row gets taken from you. That sucks.
Personally, I wouldn't have the strength to do it. I'd probably quit. I'd be like, yeah, no, screw that. That's 2 major injuries.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're still making bank.
Oh, dude, I mean, you could go be an analyst somewhere, still make good money. Dude, that would
I guess,
tough.
yeah, it's just mentally it would be a lot to deal with there.
Yeah, story number 3 here. UFC 291 was this past Saturday. Wildly
Damn
entertaining card. Yeah, the top 3 fights were fantastic. Derek Lewis opens with a flying double knee against something De Lima. I forget his first name. But nonetheless, that ended in 15, 16 seconds tops.
Yep.
That was wild. Alex Pereira beats Juan Blachowicz. I thought there was an argument to be made that Juan beat, Alex Pereira, but...
I mean, we were watching that together, and we both had Juan in 2 of the 3 rounds.
Look, Alex Pereira is fantastic. His power is unbelievable. I didn't think he looked super crisp. I thought being taken down a lot. Now, I know Blachowicz didn't do a ton on the ground, but he controlled Alex for most of the fight, so I would have given it to Blachowicz, but I still can see the argument for Alex Pereira, so
yeah,
whatever.
Damn good card, though.
Yeah, and then finally, Justin Gaethje beating Dustin Poirier with a head kick. First of all, sets it up perfectly, fakes the jab, throws the leg opposite the jab, so now Dustin's leaning the direction that the flying leg is coming at his head, leans right into it, gets knocked out cold. That was unbelievable. Justin Gaethje.
That was crazy, and that was one that we thought was going to go the distance.
I thought it was going the distance, yeah.
I lost a lot of money this weekend in DraftKings. Not a lot, but I lost
I would say not a lot, but definitely lost a little bit of money. Quite unfortunate, but either way, that was one of the best cards that I think I've watched, at least in its entirety live,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen really good highlights of other cards, but from start to finish, from not the early prelims, but from prelims all the way through the final main event, watching the entire thing, that was one of the best cards I've watched start to finish.
Damn good one.
Damn good one. That's all we have for the news.
All right, well, let's get into this discussion. A lot to talk about in 49ers news and Trey Lance. We've been kind of hinting at it the entire show, so yeah, let's get into that.
Right, so one thing I think is overlooked in this situation, we know that Kyle Shanahan's good with quarterbacks, right? Matt Schaub and Matt Ryan and Jimmy G worked and Brock Purdy worked. Hell, even Nick Mullins looked like a decent quarterback for a little bit. Looked like a very, very good backup, even though he's probably a low-end backup, right? So we know he can work with pretty much any quarterback, right? But the thought process was, if he could do that to an average quarterback, talent-wise, right? Because nobody thinks Matt Ryan's lighting the world on fire with talent. Same with Jimmy G, same with Brock Purdy, right? They're accurate, they're on schedule, right? They do some of the little things well, but they don't have a ton of talent when compared to a bunch of other quarterbacks like a Mahomes, Allen, etc. But the thought process was, if he could do that to an average quarterback, what can he do with an uber-talented quarterback like a Trey Lance? Because there's no doubt that Trey Lance has the talent. Huge arm, can make a lot of really nice down-the-field throws. Big, strong, can move. Reminds me a lot of a Josh Allen, right, where he's very raw, so he's going to rely on his legs a lot in his first couple of years. Hopefully, you just hope he can refine the passing a little bit to get to 64% and give you a couple splash plays, right? And clearly that has not panned out. But one thing that I don't think enough people talk about is that they haven't really given it a fair shake. Where, like, the first year, it was kind of a wash. You were like, okay, he's going to be a project, right? So Jimmy's going to start. And they got Trey Lance into a couple packages. He was a little bit hurt here and there. He hadn't played football in a while because the whole COVID thing. He was at a small school, right? So some of those small schools, like small D1s and D2s, just canceled the entire season, right? So he hadn't played football in a long time. Played like 8 total games in college or something like that, something crazy. And then he comes in, so his body's getting used to it. He's getting used to it on the mental side of the thing, of the game. And then second year, he goes in, so they move off Jimmy. Second year, he is the clear-cut starter. Plays one game in a monsoon, loses, didn't look great. And then plays a second game, 3 plays into the game, breaks his leg. And then Brock Purdy plays well, And then all of a sudden we just assume that Trey Lance is never going to get an opportunity. He was the starter, broke his damn leg, and all of a sudden he's just washed, can't play, he's a bust. I'm not saying I think he's going to be great. I just have no idea. But my question is, when did he lose the ability to compete for the starting job? Like, it's almost like it's not even discussed that he's even in the conversation to see the field, right? It's like Purdy, Darnold, and Lance. That's all you're hearing right now. I don't think he's been given a fair shake. Like, I think he should be the starter going into this year.
I can see the argument for that. I mean, it's not his fault that he got hurt.
That's what I'm saying. And I know Brock Purdy played well, but Brock Purdy's not nearly as talented.
I guess maybe just the lack of experience. I guess Brock has played more football games recently.
He was a 4-year starter.
It's just like, it all boils back down to, have you really ever heard any hype coming out of the 49ers camp that, oh, you need to see Trey Lance? Like, even in the first, year of camp.
Very, very little bit.
And I feel like if he was somebody that they thought could be, like, really good, light the world on fire starter, or at least just start for the damn team, that there would be at least some good positive things coming out of camp, and, like, you should see this throw. And I mean, come on. We've been in camp for, what, a couple days now? My feed has been flooded with highlights from camp. On any social media app, you name it. It's everywhere. If Trey Lance was any good, you would have seen so many clips of it already. He doesn't even have to play a football game.
That's a good point. I just think, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I just don't know. And we haven't seen it. We've barely seen it.
Yeah, there is a big unknown. And I just think, I mean, so you look back. I mean, we have the time. So you look back at his game logs, right? He's played, like, I think, 5 games in his career in terms of, like, starting quarterback. Trey Lance game logs. Let's see. This things I do right here.
There you go.
I don't know why I so much enjoy, like, this much digging here. Okay. So let's see. What games did he start? So he starts the Arizona game. Doesn't play all that well. Has no touchdowns, 1 pick. Pass rating of 58. But then he plays against Houston, which, like, 10 weeks later, completes 70% of his throws. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 116 pass rating. Runs the ball pretty well, 31 yards on the ground. And then the next season, right, he's going into the season as the starter, has a tough game, 50 pass rating, but he's 2 for 3 to start the next game. And then, like, the 5th play of the game, breaks his leg. Like, 4 starts? That says we're giving the kid 4 starts?
I mean, I would give him another chance, for sure, but I wouldn't be dead set on him starting for my team all year. I'd keep him on a very, very short leash. I'll give him half the season. I'll give you half the season. You don't screw up too bad. We can keep this going, figure out what the rest of the year is going to look like for you, let you develop a little bit. But if we play, and 3 games into it, you are the reason we're losing football games, I have a guy that can start behind you.
Sam Darnold or Trey Lance.
Exactly.
I'm saying, for you, who'd you pick right now? Sam Darnold or Trey Lance going into the season? If Brock Purdy wasn't there, you had to pick between Trey Lance or Sam Darnold.
We know what Sam Darnold is. I would say he'd be a great guy to sit on the bench for a couple of games and see what you have in Trey at least.
So you would go in and you'd pick Trey Lance to start the season?
If it was between those two, yes.
I could not agree more.
But I would keep him on a very, very short leash.
Brock Purdy or Trey Lance?
I would take Brock. Brock because younger, I know he can play, and I think he can have a pretty good upside. He had a good season last year. He earned himself the starting role. I feel like if you took that from him right now, if it's between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, and you take that starting job away from Brock Purdy after everything that he's done, comes in, Mr. Irrelevant, plays his ass off, at least above expectations for what we thought was going to come from Brock Purdy. And then you just come into the season and be like, hey, man, all that work you did, thanks so much for keeping us on course, but we're going to move on. You're going to be the backup this year.
That happens all the time, though. No, I agree with you, but I'm playing devil's advocate. That happens all the time.
I know, but I just think in this situation you got to roll with Brock. And if Brock starts trailing off and it looks like, oh, okay, maybe last year was an anomaly and he's really not that good and we need to explore other options, then fine, put Trey in. Give him a second shot.
All right, so now
I wouldn't be dead set on either of the two.
Okay, so you're saying Brock, then Trey, then Sam, depth chart-wise.
Yeah.
It's got to be the... Is it the best third-string quarterback in history?
It's got to
At
be.
least the most talented.
It's got to be.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know.
Then
I
you-
don't know what I did. There's an argument that Brock Purdy with the whole rookie contract thing, him being a 7th-round pick makes significantly less than Trey Lance. Sam Darnold's not making a ton of money either. There's a very real argument to say, like, that's a great roster that deserves to be paid well, like every other position out there. That if Brock can right the ship for the next 3 years making nothing, then there's a real argument that that's the best way to achieve success.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would do. I'd probably go Brock.
I don't think you're going to win anything big with any of the three, though. I should put that in there, too. I don't see a Super Bowl with Brock. I don't see a Super Bowl with Trey. I don't see a Super Bowl with
I
Sam
just don't
Darnold.
think you know what Trey. Like, I think the only one that I could see a Super Bowl is Trey Lance, because we don't know what he is. Like, he could be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. We've seen 4 games and a game where he came in halfway through. I'm sorry, 3 games in a game where he's come in halfway through. Like
So you're saying we need to see Trey?
100%. You have to see Trey Lance.
Okay. So are you
Plus,
doing the same
if
thing?
not-
So if it's between Brock and Trey for you, are you going Trey?
No, I'm still going Brock. I think Brock's right now a better player.
Yeah.
And it's a more of a win now situation.
I mean, that roster is ready to win. It's
Yeah.
just missing that guy.
Fair enough.
Guys, that's all we have for you today. Make sure you are going to theissuesports.com, checking out the website, checking out the newsletter. Put your email in, click sign up, and then go check the inbox in the email there. Just accept it when it comes through, and you'll get the newsletter every single Wednesday. Other than that, social medias, guys, you know the drill. Everything is in the description of the episode, no matter where you're watching or listening. Guys, that was The Issue.